Imagine waking up one morning and feeling heavy. Nothing terrible happened. No tragedy. No crisis. And yet your chest feels tight, your motivation is gone, and even the simplest tasks feel like lifting mountains. Now imagine the opposite. You wake up energized. Music sounds better. Food tastes richer. People seem kinder. The future looks possible. What changed? Not the world. Not your bank account. Not your relationships. What changed were molecules. Tiny, invisible molecules moving through your brain, shaping your thoughts, your emotions, your motivation, and even your sense of meaning. Today we're going to explore the astonishing truth. Your mood is chemistry. Your feelings are physics in motion. And understanding this gives you power. Richard Feynman once said, "If you want to understand nature, don't memorize, ask why." So let's ask, why does sadness feel heavy? Why does motivation vanish? Why does love feel warm? Why does anxiety feel electric? And the deeper question, how can molecules create emotions? Mood is not magic, it's mechanics. Your brain is not a mystical fog machine producing random feelings. It is a physical system. 86 billion neurons, trillions of synaptic connection, electrical signals moving at up to 120 meters per second, chemical messengers shaping every signal. Every thought you have, every memory, every burst of joy, every wave of despair, all of it emerges from physics and chemistry, not metaphorically, literally. The four molecules that rule your mood. While hundreds of chemicals influence mood, four molecules play a dominant role. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation. Serotonin, the molecule of stability. Oxytocin, the molecule of connection. Cortisol, the molecule of stress. These molecules do not control you, they inform your brain about the state of your world. Think of them as messengers reporting. Are we safe? Are we progressing? Are we loved? Are we in danger? Your mood is your brain's summary of these reports. Dopamine, the engine of drive. Let's start with dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. That's wrong. Dopamine is not pleasure. Dopamine is anticipation. It is the feeling that something good is coming. It's why you feel excited before a reward. You scroll social media endlessly. You chase goals. You start projects. You keep trying after failure. Dopamine says, keep going. The future might reward you. Real fact, dopamine is about prediction. Experiments show dopamine spikes when reward is expected. Dopamine crashes when reward is missing. Dopamine barely reacts to guaranteed rewards. Your brain isn't chasing pleasure. It's chasing possibility. Why modern life hijacks dopamine? In nature, effort, reward, food, safety, connection. In modern life, swipe novelty, click stimulation, scroll unpredictable reward. Your brain treats notifications like survival signals, not because they matter, because they are unpredictable. And unpredictability is dopamine's favorite fuel. Real consequence. Low dopamine can feel like lack of motivation, procrastination, numbness, loss of interest. High dopamine dysregulation can feel like addiction, compulsive behavior, inability to focus. This is not a personality flaw. It is neurochemistry adapting to environment. Serotonin, the molecule of enough. If dopamine says more, serotonin says enough. Serotonin stabilizes mood, confidence, and emotional resilience. It signals safety, contentment, belonging, internal stability, People with balanced serotonin often report calm confidence, emotional control, steady mood. Real fact, serotonin is linked to status and safety. In social animals, serotonin increases when they feel secure in their group, they perceive social stability, they feel respected. This is not ego, it is survival biology. Being secure in a group once meant survival. Isolation meant death. Your brain still runs this ancient program. Modern disruption, chronic comparison, social media can lower serotonin because your brain interprets. Others are ahead. I am not secure. Even if your life is objectively safe, your brain does not evaluate truth. It evaluates signals. Oxytocin, the molecule of trust. Oxytocin is often called the love hormone, but its real function is trust and bonding. It is released during physical touch, eye contact, shared laughter, acts of kindness, emotional vulnerability. Oxytocin tells your brain, you are not alone. You are safe with others. Real fact, humans are biologically wired for connection. Loneliness triggers the same brain regions as physical pain. Why? Because isolation once meant death. Your brain treats social disconnection as a survival threat, not a preference, a threat. Cortisol, the molecule of alert. Cortisol is not the enemy. It is the alarm system. It prepares your body to respond to danger, increases heart rate, sharpens attention, mobilizes energy, suppresses non-essential functions. In short bursts, cortisol saves your life. In chronic exposure, it drains it. Real fact, chronic stress reshapes the brain. Long-term cortisol elevation can shrink the hippocampus, increase anxiety sensitivity, disrupt sleep cycles, impair decision-making. Your brain is plastic. Stress doesn't just affect mood, it changes structure. The physics of feelings. Here's where the Feynman-style perspective becomes powerful. Your emotions are not abstract. They are measurable events involving electrical potentials across membranes, ion channel openings, neurotransmitter diffusion, receptor binding, energy transfer. Every emotion is a physical process, not metaphorically. Literally physics. Why this knowledge is liberating? If mood were random, you would be powerless. But mood is biochemical feedback. That means your environment changes your chemistry. Your behavior changes your chemistry. Your thoughts change your chemistry. And over time, your chemistry reshapes your brain. This is not motivation talk. This is neuroplasticity. Real-world example. Consider two routines. Routine A, sleep 5 hours. Constant phone use. No sunlight. Isolation. High sugar diet. Result, low serotonin. Dopamine dysregulation. High cortisol. Mood, anxious, numb, unmotivated. Routine B, consistent sleep. Morning sunlight. Physical movement. Social interaction. Focused work. Result, stable serotonin. Balanced dopamine. Reduced cortisol. Mood, calm, driven, resilient. Same person, different chemistry. The most important truth, you are not your mood. Your mood is information, a report, a dashboard, not a destiny. In the next part, we will go deeper into how modern technology rewires dopamine pathways, the science of depression and anxiety, why motivation disappeared, practical, evidence-based ways to influence your brain chemistry, the physics of habit formation, and most importantly, how understanding molecules gives you control over your mental state. Because when you understand the machinery, you are no longer a victim of it. You know, something strange has happened in the last 20 years. Human beings haven't changed. Our brains are the same. Our biology is the same. Our molecules are the same. And yet, more people than ever are saying the same things. I can't focus. I don't feel motivated. Nothing excites me anymore. I'm tired all the time. Now, if you look at this like a physicist, you don't start by blaming the system. You ask, what changed in the environment? Because the brain is not isolated. It responds to inputs, and the inputs today are radically different from anything humans evolved with. Think about how reward used to work. For most of human history, if you wanted something good, you had to work for it. You had to hunt to eat. You had to build to stay warm. You had to cooperate to survive. Effort came first. Reward came later. And dopamine, that famous molecule, evolved to help you persist through effort, not to reward pleasure, but to keep you moving towards something that might matter. Now look at modern life. You wake up, you pick up your phone, and within seconds, you get novelty, stimulation, social signals, and unpredictability. No effort required. Your brain didn't evolve for this, but it adapts. It always adapts. Here's something fascinating. Your brain releases more dopamine when a reward is unpredictable than when it is guaranteed. If I give you $10 every day at the same time, your brain stops reacting. But if sometimes you get $10, sometimes nothing, and sometimes 100, your brain becomes obsessed. Not because of the money, because of the uncertainty. This is the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. And it's the same principle behind infinite scrolling. Every time you refresh a feed, your brain is asking a question. Maybe something interesting is here? Most of the time, nothing meaningful appears. But occasionally, something surprising does. And that tiny surprise is enough to train your brain to keep checking. Not because you are weak, because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, chase uncertain rewards. Now here's the paradox. The more easy dopamine you consume, the less motivated you feel. This sounds backward, but it's measurable. When your brain gets constant stimulation, it recalibrates. It raises the threshold for what counts as rewarding. Suddenly, slow activities, reading, studying, building a skill feel unbearably dull. Not because they are useless, because your brain has been trained to expect fireworks. People often interpret this as laziness, but it isn't. It's adaptation. Your dopamine receptors become less sensitive when overstimulated. Your baseline drops, and ordinary life begins to feel flat. You're not broken. Your brain is adjusting to the signals it receives. Now add something else to the equation: comparison. For most of human history, you compared yourself to maybe 50 people. Your tribe, your village, your community. Today, you compare yourself to millions, most of whom are presenting curated, edited versions of their lives. Your brain doesn't know it's curated. It just sees signals that suggest they are ahead, you are behind. And this affects serotonin, the molecule associated with stability, confidence, and social security. Your brain interprets perceived status as a survival signal, not because status is ego, because historically, low status meant less protection, less food, less safety. Your brain still runs this ancient program. And then there is loneliness. We are more connected than any generation in history, and yet loneliness is rising everywhere. Why? Because the brain distinguishes between digital contact and physical presence. Oxytocin, the molecule of trust and bonding, responds to eye contact, touch, shared space, synchronized movement. A message on a screen carries information, but it does not carry the full biological signal of connection. So you can have thousands of interactions and still feel alone. Now consider stress. Your brain evolved to handle short bursts of danger. A predator appears. Your body mobilizes. You escape. The system resets. But today, you are exposed to a constant stream of alarming information. Wars, disasters, conflicts, outrage. Your brain processes these as threats. Even if they are thousands of kilometers away, the stress response activates and never fully turns off. This is not a personal failure. It is a nervous system responding to non-stop signals of danger. What's happening, in simple terms, is this. We are running ancient biology in a hyperstimulating environment. The hardware is old, the software is overwhelming, and the mismatch is shaping our mood. Now here's the important part. If mood is shaped by inputs, then changing inputs changes mood. Not instantly, not magically, but measurably. Your brain is plastic. It rewires based on repeated experience. This is not philosophy. This is physics and chemistry unfolding over time. People often wait to feel motivated before they act, but motivation is not the cause of action. It is the result. When you take a small action, dopamine responds. When dopamine responds, the behavior is reinforced. When behavior is reinforced, motivation grows. So the real secret is not waiting. It is beginning, even when you don't feel like it. Especially then, instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you can ask, "What signals am I feeding my brain?" Because your mood is not a verdict. It is feedback, and feedback can be changed. Let's talk about something people rarely understand correctly. Depression, anxiety, emotional exhaustion. These words are used everywhere, but very few people stop to ask a simple scientific question. What is actually happening inside the brain? Not philosophically, not poetically, but physically. You see, the brain is not a cloud of thoughts. It is a living system made of cells, electricity, and molecules. Every emotion you feel corresponds to measurable activity. Neurons firing, chemicals binding, circuits strengthening or weakening. So when someone says, "I feel empty," that emptiness is not imaginary. It is a change in signaling, a change in chemistry, a change in energy flow. Take depression, for example. People often describe it as sadness. But clinically, depression is not just sadness. It is loss of motivation, loss of interest, emotional numbness, mental fatigue, distorted time perception. These are not personality traits. They are system-level changes. One major factor is dopamine regulation. Remember, dopamine is not pleasure. It is anticipation. It tells the brain something good is possible. When dopamine signaling drops, the future stops feeling rewarding. Tasks feel pointless. Effort feels irrational. Not because the person doesn't care, but because the brain cannot detect meaningful reward. Imagine trying to walk toward a destination that your brain insists does not exist. That is what low dopamine motivation feels like. Now consider serotonin. Serotonin helps regulate mood stability and emotional resilience. When serotonin signaling is disrupted, small problems feel overwhelming. Negative thoughts loop more easily. Emotional recovery slows down. It's not that the person is choosing negativity. The brain is struggling to return to baseline. Anxiety works differently. Anxiety is not fear. Fear is a response to a known threat. Anxiety is a response to uncertain threat. It is the brain saying, something might go wrong. Prepare. This is driven by heightened sensitivity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, and stress hormones like cortisol. When this system becomes overactive, the brain detects danger where none exists. A message notification, a social interaction, an unfamiliar situation, all interpreted as potential threats. This is not weakness. It is a survival system stuck in high alert. And from a biological perspective, that makes sense. If your ancestors ignored potential danger, they didn't survive. Your brain evolved to err on the side of caution. Better false alarms than missed threats. But in a modern environment filled with constant uncertainty, this system can become exhausting. Now here's something important. People often say, just think positive. But thoughts do not float freely. They emerge from brain states. If your neurochemistry is dysregulated, positive thinking is like trying to run software on damaged hardware. It's not impossible, but it's not sufficient. Real change requires changing the underlying signals. And here is where hope enters the picture. Because the brain is not fixed, it is plastic. Neuroplasticity means that repeated experiences reshape neural pathways. Not overnight, but reliably. Let's take sunlight. Exposure to natural morning light helps regulate circadian rhythms and increases serotonin production. Not metaphorically. Photons enter the eye, signal the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and influence hormone cycles. Physics becomes biology. Biology becomes mood. Movement works the same way. Physical activity increases dopamine sensitivity and releases endorphins. It also reduces excess cortisol. You're not burning stress. You're altering molecular balance. Human connection is another powerful regulator. Eye contact, shared laughter, synchronized activities, these increase oxytocin. Oxytocin reduces fear responses and increases trust. Again, not poetic, biochemical. Sleep might be the most underrated factor. During deep sleep, the brain clears metabolic waste, resets neurotransmitter systems, and recalibrates emotional circuits. Chronic sleep deprivation increases cortisol, reduces dopamine sensitivity, and destabilizes mood regulation. You are not bad at mornings. You are under-recovered. Now let's talk about emotional pain. Rejection, loss, isolation, these activate the same neural pathways as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex responds to both. Your brain treats social pain as survival relevant, because for most of human history, isolation meant death. So when heartbreak hurts, that pain is not symbolic. It is neurological. Understanding this changes how we treat ourselves. Instead of saying, "What's wrong with me?" we can ask, "What has my nervous system been adapting to?" Because your brain is always learning, always adjusting, always trying to keep you alive, not happy, not successful, alive. And sometimes, the strategies it learned in the past no longer fit the present. Hypervigilance that once ensured safety becomes anxiety. Emotional shutdown that once prevented overwhelm becomes numbness. Avoidance that once reduced danger becomes isolation. These are not failures. They are outdated survival patterns. The good news is this: patterns can change. Neural pathways weaken when unused. New pathways strengthen with repetition. This is not motivation talk. This is synaptic plasticity. Recovery, then, is not a single decision. It is a process of giving the brain new evidence. Evidence that effort leads to reward. Evidence that connection is safe. Evidence that rest restores energy. Evidence that the future contains possibility. And slowly, often invisibly, the chemistry shifts. If you could see it happening, it would look like tiny adjustments. receptors becoming more sensitive, stress responses calming, reward circuits reactivating, sleep cycles stabilizing, thought patterns softening. No dramatic moment, just gradual recalibration. So if you are struggling, the most important thing to understand is this: your experience is real. Your brain is responding to signals, and signals can change, not instantly, but inevitably with consistent input. Instead of asking, "Will I feel better?" a more scientific question is, what conditions help the brain regulate itself? Because the brain is not your enemy. It is a system trying to protect you. And once it learns that the world is safer than it expected, it begins to let go. So now we arrive at the real question. If mood is chemistry, and chemistry responds to inputs, what can a human being actually do? Not theoretically, not perfectly, but realistically. The first thing to understand is this: your brain does not change because of one dramatic decision. It changes because of repeated signals, small signals, consistent signals, signals that say, this environment is safe, this effort matters, this future is worth moving toward. People often search for a complete reset, a dopamine detox, a new life plan, a perfect routine. But the brain does not work in extremes. It works in patterns. If you starve it of stimulation completely, it rebels. If you flood it with stimulation constantly, it adapts downward. Balance is not a moral idea. It is a biological requirement. Let's begin with something simple: light. Morning sunlight is not just fresh air. It is information. When light enters your eyes, it signals your internal clock, the circadian rhythm, telling your body when to release cortisol, when to produce serotonin, and when to prepare for sleep. Without this signal, your system drifts. Sleep becomes irregular. Mood becomes unstable. Energy becomes unpredictable. This is not laziness. This is desynchronization. Movement is another signal, not extreme exercise, just movement. When muscles contract, they release molecules that communicate with the brain. They increase dopamine sensitivity. They reduce excess stress hormones. They improve emotional regulation. You are not working out to look better. You are sending regulatory signals to your nervous system. Now consider attention. Your attention is the gatekeeper of your chemistry. What you repeatedly focus on becomes your brain's reality. If your attention is filled with outrage, comparison, and endless novelty, your nervous system learns that the world is unstable and urgent. If your attention includes moments of focus, completion, and presence, your brain learns that effort leads to resolution. Completion is deeply regulating. Finishing a small task tells your brain, the system works. Effort leads to result. This rebuilds trust in action. Connection may be the most powerful regulator of all. Not performative interaction, not metrics. Real connection. A conversation where you are heard. Shared laughter. Silence that feels comfortable. These moments release oxytocin, which reduces fear responses and calms the threat detection system. Your brain learns. I am not alone. I am safe with others. Safety is the foundation of emotional stability. Sleep, of course, is not optional maintenance. It is active repair. During deep sleep, the brain resets neurotransmitter balance, processes emotional experiences, and clears metabolic waste. Chronic sleep deprivation does not just make you tired. It distorts perception, increases anxiety sensitivity, and reduces motivation. You are not failing at discipline. You are operating on an under-repaired system. Now let's talk about something people misunderstand: dopamine resets. The internet often promotes extreme detoxes: no phone, no entertainment, no stimulation. But the goal is not to eliminate dopamine. Dopamine is necessary for life. The goal is to retrain what your brain considers rewarding. When you reduce constant novelty and allow space for slower rewards, reading, building, learning, creating, your brain gradually resensitizes. At first, these activities feel dull, then tolerable, then satisfying. Not because they changed, because your receptors did. This is why small, consistent actions outperform dramatic changes. Your brain trusts patterns, not promises. 1 hour of focus repeated daily is more powerful than 1 week of intensity followed by collapse. You are not trying to impress your brain. You are trying to reassure it. Emotional resilience is often misunderstood as toughness. But biologically, resilience is flexibility, the ability to return to baseline after disturbance. A resilient nervous system still feels stress, sadness, and fear, but it does not remain trapped there. It moves like a system designed to self-correct. And here is something deeply important. You are not meant to feel good all the time. A perfectly happy human would be biologically unrealistic. Emotions are signals. Sadness signals loss. Anxiety signals uncertainty. Anger signals boundary violation. Joy signals safety and connection. The goal is not to eliminate these signals. The goal is to prevent them from becoming permanent states. If you take nothing else from this, take this. Your mood is not a moral judgment. It is information. It tells you how your nervous system is interpreting the world. And interpretation can change. Over time, with consistent signals of safety, effort, connection, and rest, the brain begins to recalibrate. Dopamine pathways regain sensitivity. Serotonin stabilizes mood. Cortisol rhythms normalize. Oxytocin rebuilds trust. No single moment marks the change. But one day, you notice something subtle. You wake up with a little more energy. A task feels slightly easier to start. A conversation feels warmer. The future feels possible again. Not perfect, not permanent, but possible. And possibility is what dopamine was designed to detect. So the next time you feel unmotivated, anxious, or emotionally numb, remember this: you are not broken. You are adapting. Your brain is responding to signals, and signals can change. If you treat yourself like a system worth understanding instead of a problem to be judged, you begin to work with your biology instead of against it. And that is where real change begins. Not in force, not in shame, but in understanding. You are not controlled by mysterious emotions. You are a living system of energy, chemistry, and experience. And when you change the signals you live in, you change the life you are able to feel.